That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.
Hi everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Trade Talk. This is on Batman: The Road to No Man's Land, Volume 2. So I'm continuing my review series on the No Man's Land arc. This was the last thing I bought before I could start this, and it still took me like 3 months to get around to it. So again, I'm not going to go through like the plot of what happens in every issue, but I will talk about the main plot of this is the government finally, putting the moratorium on No Man's Land. And it seems that a lot of that has to do with this this evil guy with some kind of crazy abilities that is manipulating things behind the scene, or not even behind the scenes, manipulating things in the public consciousness. His name's Nick Sharp. He's a rock star, brilliant genius, supervillain. And he's got like a public persona that he's using, and he's taking out rivals, and he's trying to just paint this awful image of Gotham City so that the city's never saved for some reason. We really don't know why. We've got the John Paul Valley Azrael series, connecting the coming in here to connect him as the villain of the book. But ultimately, that's the main through line here. And the other big through line is Mr. Wayne Goes to Washington, in which Bruce Wayne goes to Washington, try to testify, and save Gotham City, get the government to help fund the rebuilding of Gotham City. Ultimately, he fails, and the No Man's Land is declared. Now they're going to have to deal with that for, I believe No Man's Land lasts exactly 1 year. So, I hate to open up with complaints, but I do have a pretty big complaint about this one, which is this volume is in a really poor collection order. Which is unfortunate, because I didn't really feel that way with Cataclysm or Road to No Man's Land Volume 1. Those had like a couple things where I'm like, oh, well, this happened just in the last issue or something. But that's pretty reasonable. That's like understandable, and it's like, it didn't feel like the entire event of one issue happened before the events of another in those other volumes. This one, like, they straight mention that these other things have yet to happen that we've already read by the time you get to that point. I was not a fan of the order in which this was collected. It kind of jumps around a lot and just feels off, unfortunately. Like, to be fair, some of it takes place over longer periods of time. Like, there's the Alan Grant Shadow of the Bat series in this is called Waxman and the Clown, I believe. Why am I going all the way to the back to turn to, like, the second page? Yeah, Waxman and the Clown is a 3-part story written by Alan Grant that I really liked in this, too. That has to do with the prisoners in Arkham, the inmates of Arkham Asylum, and what Jeremiah Arkham's going to do about them as the No Man's Land gets closer and closer. So, I don't know, there's just a lot of stuff out of order in here that, like, it feels like you had plenty of time to collect this. Believe me, you had plenty of time to collect this. I've been buying No Man's Land frickin' ever. Before we finally got to this point where I could read everything in order. But just like, have I talked about this? The way in which they released this being just completely ass backwards. Because it's atrocious. So they released No Man's Land, Volume 1, 2, 3, 4. Then they released Cataclysm. Then they released Road to No Man's Land, Volume 1 and 2. But we're talking over like 3 to 6 month periods between releases, as near as I could tell. Maybe my comic shop just didn't get it till later. Maybe it took me too long to notice it. But I feel like I got these as they were being released within a reasonable amount of time. And it's took forever to get everything. Like let me show you how long it took to get everything, okay? This is ridiculous. Last volume released. Folded DC Comics logo. Come on, focus thing. Folded DC Comics logo. First volume released. That's pretty bad. Admittedly, this came out right before they changed the logo, because let me look at some of the other volumes here. Yeah, it's volume 3 at which they actually changed the logo on the trades, but still, that's forever. Got 2 volumes with the old DC Comics logo. Like, they're 2 logos back now. That's how bad this is. Like, what's the new logo look like? It's got the DC in the circle there. Oh, there's a better look at it. You know, it's got the DC in the circle up there. That's pretty bad. We're 2 logos back now, and you know the worst part? When you put these on a shelf together, that is just unholiness right there. I have legit thought about rebuying volumes 1 and 2 of No Man's Land just because of what's on the spine. It angers me in my soul. So not only did this take just forever to come out, but it's also just really, really poorly collected. It's really out of order. Like Mr. Wayne Goes to Washington is a 2 or 3 part story, and it happens relatively early on in the book. I gotta find it because it's just interesting to me. All right, Mr. Wayne Goes to Washington. Part 1 is right there in the book. Then we get part 2 right after. Okay. And then immediately after that, we get the announcement that it's done. They're going to end Gotham City. You know, people are going to be stuck there, kind of thing. And it's mostly an action issue in which that happens, where like they just deal with this evil guy's plan to keep defaming Gotham City to make sure it's not saved. And then we start getting into a lot of Shadow of the Bat, Waxman and the Clown stuff. And just things are happening in these stories that are like, oh yeah, it's like Waxman and the Clown all takes place before, or most of it takes place before the announcement, but, you know, in chapter previous, we just got the announcement. That's just weird. It just feels really, really out of place. I don't know, this just feels like you could have done a much better job of collecting it. That, and there's also some really weird stuff, like, I think it's part 2 of Mr. Wayne Goes to Washington that had the most apparent one. Like, it's just the credits, and we already know that, but, like, that's weird, right? Look at that, they just cut off the credits on the comic cover. It's bizarre to me. I don't know. I'm not very pleased with that. I still really like the art. You know, a lot of this art just looks really, really cool and makes me feel nostalgic. It's right at that turn, you know. I really like the Mr. Wayne Goes to Washington issue 2, though. That's really, really good. As Bruce Wayne testifies before Congress as to why they should save Gotham City. And, like, I love that his speech just goes back and forth to, you know, famous moments from the history of Batman. And that just makes it really, really interesting and poignant. It's really nicely intercut. Because you just get a really good sense of the story. I like that quite a bit. I mean, like, it gets really specific, too. We get a Ra's al Ghul reference. We get a Bane reference. So, you know, I really like that. That was neat. But yeah, awkward collection. The other story arc in this is the Alan Grant Waxman and the Clown that I really liked, because that is just Jeremiah Arkham sitting there with dwindling resources at Arkham Asylum, deciding what the hell to do about the inmates. I really appreciate, like, it's just a really well told story. Alan Grant has a great voice and command over Arkham Asylum, and it's just, he gets that place so damn well. Like, I remember when what was it? The first Arkham Asylum video game came out. People were wondering, oh, is it based on the Grant Morrison book? I mean, it's got Amadeus Arkham, and it mentions Mad Dog, Mad Dog Hawkins in that, but it's not really tonally anything like Grant Morrison's Arkham Asylum. The Arkham Asylum in that first game, it's very Alan Grant, in my opinion. He really sets a very particular kind of tone for Arkham Asylum that I feel like a lot of other people are just trying to match. And it works really well. I also like that Jeremiah Arkham, like, even though he has to deal with all this craziness and awfulness, he legit cares. There's this great little story that, because we're reading his journal throughout the whole book, and at one point we're reading the Joker's journal because the Joker steals the journal. But man, do I love this scene where Jeremiah Arkham talks about his past and his fears in regards to what's going to happen to the inmates. Oh man. Release them to kill and kill again, or keep them here to starve slowly to death. When I was 7 years old, my parents moved house. Mom made us wave goodbye, and then we were off on our great adventure. We were 500 miles away before I remembered my pet kitten. My father was a stern man, and he refused to turn back. He said the kitten would be all right. Somebody would find it and feed it. For months, it haunted my thoughts and dreams. Saw it roaming the whole house, perhaps catching a few mice at the start, becoming gradually weaker as lack of food and water took their toll, until finally its awful, inevitable end. I haven't thought of it since, until now. It almost destroys me to think what happened to my pet. I was charged with the welfare of more than 100 dangerous lunatics. I always did my best to help them. It's not their fault they're insane. They can't help themselves. How will I feel about starving them to death? Ouch. Just, like, these are just the worst fucking people. Like, look at Joker. He's, like, on the next page, he's hanging someone up and stabbing them. There's just, like, so much evil in this asylum, but you read that stuff and you legit feel like Jeremiah Arkham cares about them. Also, this has some really, really great covers. Who did the covers for this? Glenn Orbick did the covers for the Waxman and the Clown story arc, and he does a great job. I really liked this sense of chaos. Let me show this cover real quick because it's awesome. This kind of perfectly summarizes what Arkham Asylum is, and I really like it. So anyway, and that's Jeremiah, holding them all back in the corner there, trying to lock the gate. Then there's just like this as desperation, as things start to go completely haywire, sets in. There's just some great scenes. Like there's this guy called Solly Bean, and he's a cannibal. And he's got the urge to eat people, and Arkham was making progress, was helping him, not eat people. And he's like, yeah, I realized that, I just gotta fight the urge and all that stuff. And then, like, just as food's getting more and more scarce, they just walk past a cell and they see him over a dead body. And he's like, I'm sorry, Dr. Arkham. I don't know what came over me. I just got this urge. I promise I won't do it again. And I was like, oh, God, it just feels desperate. This is the thing that makes you, like, more than anything else, makes you feel how scary everything is. How, like, limited resources and supplies and everything are. Because Arkham doesn't have the ability to keep up with this. And on its own, and things are so desperate in the city that no one does. No one can even help keep the lunatic asylum running. That's real. It just conveys a real sense of desperation and fear. And if you want to, and like you can get into the head of Arkham here, and you can really start to feel sympathy for them. So this is a great story arc. This is I think I should do a video on my top 10 Arkham Asylum stories, because Alan Grant's going to really knock up that list. Also, anyone else feel like Brian Bull and Joker right there? Anyway. So Waxman and the Clown and Mr. Wayne Goes to Washington are both really, really cool story arcs in this that I quite like. The Azrael stuff that deals with Nick Sharp is, pretty typical comic book kind of thing. It's crazy. Denny O'Neil is so hit and miss for me. Like, and I know that's probably, I'm probably losing millions of subscribers for that one. Millions that I don't even, I'm gonna have negative 1 million subscribers. But Denny O'Neil's never been like my top guy or anything like that. So, there's some stuff from him that I love and other stuff like Nightfall. And I'm just like, no. And so like him writing Azrael is just not that interesting to me. But I mean, it's the conceit of like, okay, we can't just have the government leaving. There has to be some kind of evil force behind it. And it's this guy pulling the strings and convincing people not to come. Also get a Green Lantern story with Kyle Rayner that's kind of interesting, as he is determined to save someone's stolen brooch, even though it takes him all the way to Gotham City. And Batman tells him to go home. He'll handle it. And Kyle's like, oh no, I'll just zip in real quick. And I love that Batman just pushes him off. And Kyle looks up and Batman stole his ring down there in the red panel. I was like, oh, that's pretty funny. So then Kyle, doesn't give up. He still goes, which is very Green Lantern, willful kind of thing to do. He still goes and tries to get it, even though he doesn't have his ring, and he gets in a fight, gets the shit kicked out of him, keeps on fighting, gets the brooch back, and I don't know, it's cool. Nearly gets himself killed, but ends up getting what he wanted, and I like the way this ends. Batman says, used to wonder why they chose you. And he just tosses him the ring. It's like, welcome to Gotham. I don't know, that's cool, that's cool early day Kyle story. I appreciate that. Man-Bat gets a story I didn't really care for. He's apparently in love with Barbara Gordon. Huntress and Question get a story. It's just okay. Yeah, this is... I think the first volume was a bit stronger, but this is still working for me. There's enough good in here that I like it. Just some of the the Catwoman story in Cataclysm, even though it's just this small tie-in that doesn't really add anything, it had such weight and such emotion to it. And then you get the other characters tying in here, and it's like, oh yeah, okay, it's an okay story for them. It fits. It's all right. But it's not got the same depth to it. Like the Huntress, the Green Lantern, the little tie-in stories don't have the same weight to them that the main Bat books that are dealing with this do, and that's just kind of disappointing. But that's okay, because next up is No Man's Land, where shit gets real, and I'm very excited for that. Waxman and the Clown. I'm gonna just reread this. I love that this got collected, because I don't think there's just a independent collection of Waxman and the Clown, and it probably for good reason, because you need the context of the approach of No Man's Land for that story to work as well as it does. So yeah, good stuff. Alright, that'll do it for this episode of Trade Talk. Everyone, thank you very much for watching. Until next time when I come back with No Man's Land Volume 1. See you then. Bye.
That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.